Wow, we have action. This is a direct response to all of the complaining we saw when TikTok was effectively taken from China and they had to work out a deal with the United States government where we would own half. Everybody, if you were watching the apps or if you were keeping score, there was a lot of criticism, but rightfully so. They have every right to be critical because if you can take over an app for being associated with the Chinese Communist Party, who we're not even officially at war with, we actually do business with them. But for argument's sake, they are an adversary. If you were going to seize their application, their technology, then why wouldn't you seize all the land that they own near our military installations in the United States? From your mouth to God's ears, it happened. And this is a clear and legal path towards this. The state of Missouri finds the Chinese government is liable for 24 billion in damages for hoarding PPE equipment during COVID. So what they're saying is that during the scamdemic, the pandemic, the Chinese Communist Party were instructed to go around to different countries and buy up all the protective equipment and all the gear, the masks and helmets and gloves, and bring it back to China. And they were hoarding it. They weren't selling it. So a lot of places had to get it from other places. Some places started manufacturing their own, which is actually a good thing. But they were sued and they didn't show up. So they received a default judgment where they lost, and now they're liable for 24 billion. So let's listen to this news report about it.
Missouri's efforts to sue China for $25 billion in a lawsuit accusing the Chinese Communist Party of hoarding personal protective equipment during the COVID-19 pandemic can move forward. It comes after a Court of Appeals ruled in the Show Me State's favor. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit's ruling Thursday states Missouri has plausibly alleged that the defendant's anti-competitive behavior had a direct effect in the United States. The panel granted Missouri's motion to reverse a previous ruling that threw out the lawsuit against China for allegedly hoarding masks, ventilators, and other important medical equipment from the U.S. Missouri's legal battle against Beijing will go on for now. Missouri's Attorney General Andrew Bailey celebrated the judge's ruling in favor of the state's efforts to recover damages for lost lives, jobs, and harm caused by lack of access to readily available medical equipment. Bailey said in a statement, quote, "We will continue to fight for accountability for the horror communist China unleashed on Americans in the form of COVID-19. We are headed back to court to pursue remedies for all Missourians. I'm proud of this win on behalf of the American people." As Straight Arrow News previously reported, Beijing warned of potential retaliatory legal action and suggested the U.S. could lose immunity in Chinese courts if the lawsuit continues. The CCP has called Missouri's allegations very absurd and argued they lack factual basis. Missouri's lawsuit was originally filed in 2020, accusing China of covering up critical information about the COVID-19 virus, which was struck down by a federal judge.
Okay, well, before we finish, let's address what they just said. Legally and technically, the Chinese are actually correct about that. There actually is no evidence that there was anything that was leaked from anywhere, and there's no evidence that the Chinese are to blame for anything because nothing was ever actually found. I don't understand. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Nothing was isolated. Nothing was proven to even exist in the first place that was leaked from a lab. The lab leak theory is just that. There is a theory. They're theorizing that there is something that got out that made people sick. What the Chinese are insinuating and what their stance is that there was nothing that was ever leaked. So you can't prove that we were responsible for anything. Responsible for what? However, because everyone played along with this scam, for them to send a representative to the United States to show up in some random court and then off-brand state like Missouri, which is not like a huge player. It's not California. It's not New York. It's not Texas. It's Missouri. So they didn't send anybody. So there was a default judgment. Nothing was ever actually proven that they were liable for. They just lost because no one showed up. So technically, the Chinese are correct. There was nothing ever proven to have ever been leaked. However, they did buy up a lot of equipment and brought it back to China. But how can you say that that's hoarding? Who decides that that's wrong? Anybody can purchase whatever they want to and stockpile it, whatever they want. So again, they only lost because they didn't show up. Because if they would have shown up, then they would have had to explain and answer other questions. It would have become a little bit too hairy. And then it also implicates our government. Remember, EcoHealth Alliance and Fauci also funded gain-of-function research allegedly in the Wuhan lab in China, where they're saying this originated. But again, they're not necessarily telling you what this is. Okay, you gave it a name. What is it made out of? Have you ever isolated it? Have you ever verified its existence? Were you able to measure it? If it doesn't meet the standards of the scientific method, I personally cannot just willy-nilly say that, yeah, it exists. It's real. It was real. Yada yada. It doesn't pass the smell test. There was nothing for you to blame them for. So what this was an emotional case where a judge, Missouri filed a lawsuit saying that, they were hoarding PPE equipment nobody could get. And it was a huge lawsuit number. The Chinese didn't show up. Now there's $24 billion in damages that they can now levy property owned by the Chinese to cover this debt. As of today, the Chinese own 383,935 acres of U.S. agricultural land close to military installations that can now be legally confiscated to cover the debt from their lawsuit loss in the state of Missouri. So you asked for it. Now you have it. We are going to take back the land that is owned by the Chinese. And honestly, there should be a ban on foreign governments owning land or property in the United States. It screams corruption. It screams unnecessary. It shouldn't be allowed. So we'll be back with another story in about 30 minutes. Thank you for tuning in, and we got our victory. I mean, yeah, we didn't get it the right way, but I guess a win is a win. Thank you.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.